My colleague, Dr. James Comer at Yale University, tells this parable that I think is very helpful in helping us appreciate what's happening to children today and what we must do as their caretakers, as the adults in their lives. Our job is to prepare children for their future, a future that we can not easily imagine. What do we do to help prepare them? Let me tell you about this parable. A man goes out fishing one day, and he's fishing on a river, and he's going to float down the river. And he throws out his line and then looks upriver, and he sees a child floating down, struggling in the water, near drowning. So he pulls in his rod and reel and paddles over and picks up the boy and begins to paddle to shore. And then he looks up and he sees another child floating down the river, that child too struggling. So he picks that child up and he worries, what kind of huckleberry fin activities are these boys engaged in? He looks upriver and he sees tens of thousands of children floating down the river, every one drowning. He has more room in the boat, but he doesn't stop. He keeps paddling to shore, so one of the boys pulls on his arm and asks, "Mister, we have more room in the boat. Can we pick up more children?" To which the man responds, "I don't have the time. I have to get to shore and go upriver and find out who's throwing children in the river and make them stop." So what is this parable teaching? The river are the adversities children face, and it's like that Dickens novel, it's the best of times, it's the worst of times. That's how it is to be children. It seems like it's the best of times for health and medical care, and yet we have a generation of children that is less healthy. It seems like it's the best of times for support and care and education, yet we have a generation of children with increasing problems like depression and the increasing use of psychiatric medications as a way of treating or warding off these mental health challenges. And the people in the boat, well, they're you and I. You and I trying to help each child floating down the river. The number of children and the kinds of problems children are having keep increasing. And like the proverbial man who throws a starfish back into the ocean on the beach, they wash up faster than we can throw them back. More children are taking psychiatric medications. More children are in special education. More children are in counseling or other mental health services. There are more residential and psychiatric programs than ever before, and yet the tide seems to be pushing more in rather than pulling more out. Resilience is about coping well under stress and adversity. Resilience is not recovery. Resilience is not magical. It's a process. It's a process that harnesses a group of behaviors, problem solving, impulse control, empathy. It's a process that harnesses relationships, having a charismatic person in your life, someone you know that's there to support you and cares about you. It's a process that recognizes every child must have an island of competence, something they do well that gives them a sense of identity and purpose that grounds them in the world around them. We as adults and caregivers, we, those who are entrusted with preparing children for the next generation, for a generation that is dependent upon us, must go upriver, must appreciate the risks that children face, must begin teaching children to negotiate the banks of the river, the adversities they face, must teach them, if they fall in the river, how to get themselves out rather than to float helplessly down the river, hoping someone will save them. Now more than ever, this idea of stress hardiness, of preparing children not by filling them with more knowledge, better grades, better academic scores, not by giving them more technology, but by teaching them how to cope with the everyday stresses and adversities that come their way is critical. Cortisol is a hormone that is released in our bodies under stress. We know today that the resting rate of cortisol in all of us, children and adults alike, are higher than ever before. Even when we feel good, the world around us is just a fingertip away on our phones, in our televisions, on our radios. It has become, as Marshall McLuhan once said, a global village. And the upside of that is we can communicate, we keep in touch with each other. The downside of that is every adversity, Every negative thing that happens in the world happens right in front of us. I am concerned that if we don't begin embracing these qualities of resilience, if we don't teach parents and educators and other professionals how to help children engage in resilient behaviors, we're in trouble. The good news is that while genetics may determine that some children are more stress-hardy than others, we know from research that experience is much more powerful in shaping how we all cope with stress and adversity in our everyday lives. I'll ask you to consider your mindset as an educator, as a mental health professional, as a physician, as a parent. What is your mindset about raising a resilient child, about preparing your children for a future that we can not well imagine? This is Dr. Sam Goldstein for Common Sense Science.